Today on the show, our continued exile and ways to deal with it, our picks of the week, and so much more. The Catholic Underground starts right now. It is indeed time for the Catholic Underground. We are the podcast that tries to cut through the noise of the digital continent, because it's a lot noisier these days, and bring you the topics that matter. It's episode number 420. I am Father Chris Decker. Joining me this week, we've got Kathleen Lee. She is the Magistra Maximus, or Maxima, I guess it would be.
Si.
At Our Lady of Mercy School, now also in exile in Baton Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Kathleen.
Hey.
Also, we've got Father Ryan Humphries. He's the pastor of St. Edward the Confessor Parish in Tallulah, Louisiana. He is an actual believer of the filthy lie that calculus is fun. Hello, Father.
Hey, how do you do?
And, of course, if we go up to the great satellite, that great satellite that has Jeff Blackwell in it.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Jeff. Jeff Blackwell is our technical director, and he joins us. And even those on the satellite are not safe from
That's true.
this impending danger.
I forgot my mask. I need to go get that.
That's okay. That's all right. We're recirculating your oxygen now. All right. and Ed is up there on the Jeff Star one as well, running the video. So if you like what you see, it's all Ed's fault. All righty. So Kathleen, here we are again.
Here we are.
That's right.
We are here.
Yeah, that's right. And Father Ryan joins us by broadband link up, and Olivia is on assignment. Yep. She's actually on assignment because she's a teacher, and like yourself, converting all of your actual classroom things into virtual classroom things. Yeah. I understand that's no easy task.
You know, it could be easy. Like what I found was it was super easy for me to do that. What I'm dealing with now is kids posting things in weird places and not following the very clear and simple directions.
Imagine that.
And emails from parents that are like, where do I turn in my kids' where do they turn in their assignment? You know, so it's...
Well, but I got to tell you, so like you teach sixth graders. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine when I was in sixth grade, of course, we didn't have the internet when I was in sixth grade, but I can't imagine like just knowing where to go and where to drop things.
We're really fortunate at our school because next year, the plan is to be a 1-to-1 with our 6th through 8th grade.
So you're converting things
So we
over.
Have slowly been, you know, but it was very interesting to see which faculty members obviously have not been, on there, because there were some freakouts when it was, hey, we're going to post everything online. So for me, you know, as in my teaching career, that's all I've ever done is online, you know, or online compatible stuff, you know, especially with all 1-to-1 programs that I've been, you know, each student has their own device. So for me, I was like, done.
Oh yeah, you're a trendsetter there.
Yeah, and it just made it super simple because it was 6th grade.
That's one of the things that continues to get me are the numbers that, or the time in which we had to kind of prepare for this.
Right.
That's one of the things that I still am trying work with in my head, you know, how we had to basically go from live to virtually live in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
In fact, that's why Father Ryan is not in the studio tonight. Father Ryan is up in his parish, just kind of being present to our people, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that's all that we can do is to be here in our churches, offering Mass and praying for them. And of course, thanks to you, Father, I was able to set up a remarkably effective live streaming rig from absolutely nothing to 0 to 60, so to speak, and very, very quickly. Partially because of your experience, but also because the technology is finally there to make it possible to do something fairly complicated with a minimum of real effort.
We can now do in about 3 clicks what used to take us hours to put together just to do one broadcast of this program. So it really is, it's quite something just to think of where. So for those of you just joining us, by the way, welcome. For those of you who are new to the Catholic Underground, I know that some of you have found us on Facebook because, well, there's nothing else on right now. And we're happy that you're here. And for those of you who are joining us on Catholic TV, on the Catholic Faith Network, on Catholic Life Television, thank you very much for your continued presence. And when we started in 2006, none of these things that we're taking for granted now existed.
Yeah.
Facebook really didn't exist in the way that it does now. Podcasting was something that was just fairly new. And so we were kind of like making things fit together in dongles and cords that didn't actually go together, just to kind of be a little ahead of the curve. And so it really is kind of something to see so many. I don't know, did you guys get a little chill up your spine today to see almost every priest that you've ever known offering Mass digitally?
Yes.
I mean, Facebook was flooded with it.
Yeah. And it was good to see, priests that don't normally have an online presence.
Yeah.
Some older priests. My aunt asked me, she said, how do I watch the Mass? And I said, which one do you want?
Right, yeah. This takes parish shopping to a new level.
Do you have a preference? Is there somebody you're looking for?
Yeah, that's
That was
true.
really cool to see.
And so one of the other things, I know in our diocese in Baton Rouge, our directives have been fairly strict. Our bishop says I'm intentionally kind of making them pretty narrow right now so that we can kind of get a handle for what's going on so that we can then determine how to respond. And so your actual mileage may vary in your diocese, but a couple of dioceses in our area, as well as throughout the United States, are doing things like drive-through confessions. And this is, Father, all of a sudden we have to get creative because all of the sacraments require you to be present. And that's...
Oh, right. And I think that what makes this a little different is that priests for a long time have had the courage to say, look, I'm not worried about myself, but because so much of the problem is about other people infecting, especially older folks, and because we have a lot of older folks in our parishes, it's not a function of I'm willing to risk myself. It's a function of I don't want to cause other people to get sick.
Right.
And so we've had to be very creative, not just as an act of I don't have the courage to put my life on the line, but I don't want to see, other people harmed. And so that's been, for me at least, the hardest thing to wrap my head around in terms of what we can do and what we can't do.
Exactly. So Father Scott Holmer of the St. Edward the Confessor Catholic Church in Bowie, Maryland.
No relation.
No relation, yeah. Is offering drive-through confessions to his parishioners after the Archdiocese of Washington suspended all public masses effective March 14th of 2020. So if you're watching this, on some archive many years from now, this is exactly where we were. Father Holmer issued a statement on his parish's website explaining that the Mass is the heart of our life together as Catholics. It's certainly a source of sorrow that none of us are able to attend Mass together because of the health crisis threatening our nation and world. I'd like to ask you to unite your prayers with the holy sacrifice of the Mass that I'll be offering in private by spending some time each day in personal prayer and by continuing to maintain your Lenten discipline of prayer, fasting, and works of mercy. He then said, since I can't guarantee your physical safety by opening up the church or the office to visitors, I've set up a drive-through confessional and will be hearing confessions in the church parking lot to maintain a 6-foot distance while penitents stay in their cars. And it's really interesting just the nature of how social media works. As soon as some of these kind of drive-through confessionals started popping up, all of a sudden, all these young priests were doing it.
Yeah. I saw many of them, posting that on social media and then saying, this is something I never thought I would do. Or, we joked about this all the time and now it's a reality. But how cool is that not that that's our reality right now, but that this is what's available to us.
Right, exactly.
And that there are people that still are desiring to go to confession.
And there are some people who, because of the times, because of the situation, want to go, and so to be able to do that. Father Holmer added that seminarian Joseph McHenry will direct traffic. The seminarian will also tell Father Holmer to blindfold his face for those wishing to go behind the screen. Father, this is a Lent unlike any other.
It's a moment unlike any other. I mean, you'd have to go back, hundreds of years to find anything quite like what we're experiencing now. Even then, it was always very localized. So it's a really crazy moment in our history.
Yeah, this is something that we haven't seen. And so I would just once again urge you to pray for your clergy, pray for your priests, pray for the deacons as well, pray for the seminarians, and please pray for our bishops. This is not easy for them, but especially because we have to kind of figure out ways to adjust in a very rapidly changing situation to be pastorally available to you. And again, we're trying to follow in obedience the wishes of the Holy Father, of our various archbishops, and then the local bishop of our diocese too. So there's a lot of chain of command stuff that we have to do. But Father, I think you'd probably agree in saying this is not just about following rules because that's what we do. We follow rules, but there's something important about the obedience that's involved.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those spiritual things that we've not thought a whole lot about as a church, especially as we've become kind of more concerned with the legal aspects and all the, the PR stuff of the last 10, 20, 30 years. Yeah. We've kind of lost touch with the charism, is the word we use in the church, of obedience. I mean, Teresa of Avila talking about how obedience for a person in religious vows or religious orders is tantamount to love. They're basically the same thing. If you love me, says the Lord, you will keep my commands. Mm-hmm. And so at this moment in particular, we have that wonderful tension, the genuine good tension between doing what the Lord wants in my heart that I think, and being obedient to our superior. And that's actually a really good thing for us. A person in religious vows, a person who is ordained, it's a good thing to kind of keep always before us.
That's right. And certainly for the faithful as well, because it can be, we're in such a drive-through culture that we expect whenever we order something at the window, it's going to be ready for us whenever we, or when we order at the box, it'll be ready at the window. Right, yeah. And and that's a difficult thing for us now to realize that the things that I just kind of count as part of being a Catholic are not readily available to me. That actually causes us to have to be obedient to things, and that teaches a virtue, a very important virtue. Yeah. Also, it's an activation of a gift of the Spirit of being able to be long suffering. Or that's a fruit of the Spirit, isn't it? To be able to withstand things, right, and then to grow as a result spiritually as a result of that. Father Homer said, "I believe the Lord is inviting us to an increased concern for the welfare of our neighbors and offering us the opportunity to make sacrifices for them. What a great Lenten penance for us all." One of the things that he mentioned is Father Homer said that I want you to continue your Lenten practices of prayer, of fasting, and works of mercy. I'd also really use the very intentional word of almsgiving. So here's the deal. You and I both know that we don't know how long this is going to continue. And you and I both know that things could get kind of crunchy whenever it comes to your paychecks and things like that. This is an opportunity for almsgiving, to, even if you have to bring way down what you're giving to your parish, to give from your poverty so that the works of the church can continue. That's an important thing. And it's not just an important thing to write a check, but it's a spiritual reality. And sometimes because the offertory basket just kind of passes us on Sunday, right, and we drop our offering in, we don't really think too much about it. Or if you have an online giving kind of thing, you don't think about it because it comes out of your bank account. This is an opportunity to very willfully say, I choose to support the works of the church, and I do this as a giving of alms. Right. And I think that...
The buzzword a bit back was intentional, right? We want to be intentional community, intentional disciples, and we have an opportunity to be intentional in a way that we really have never had as Americans. It's the Burger King culture, your way, right away. And so, this, like you say, this is an opportunity to be intentional in every aspect of our prayer, our fasting, our works of mercy, our almsgiving, all of those things. And I mean, as miserable as it is, there is a beauty in that, all things work to the good of those who love the Lord. There is an opportunity here that we don't want to miss.
Right, exactly. And so we just exhort you to make use of what is available in your diocese. If you are relegated to the monastery of your home, then be able to make use of what your parishes and your dioceses are providing for you over social media. One of the great kind of bugaboos in my head is I still don't know how to get to all of my parishioners who don't have the internet or don't have social media, and that's still, I don't know how we do that. One of the folks in my nightly complines suggests activating the quarantines. Having young people go out and actually bring the bulletin or bring the diocesan newspaper or publication and that sort of thing. And what's really strange is now I find myself, because I'm in a smaller grouping of parishes, we don't have accurate lists right now of all that, Right. And so we really are trying to struggle to keep up. So please pray for your priests, pray for your parishes, that they're able to continue to provide for your spiritual needs. If nothing else, there will be bread, there will be wine, and I have my missal. So we will be praying the Mass for you. Yeah. Fear not that the Mass, the sacrifice will continue to be offered. Just as a little quick bonus here, There's actually a Saint Corona.
I have heard this, yes.
Martyred along with Saint Victor. Coincidence? We think not. In the year 177. Her story is recorded centuries after she reportedly lived near what is now Syria, according to scholars. Her name comes from the vision of the 2 crowns that she reportedly saw, because, corona is the Latin word for crown. Huh? According to later legends, one for herself and one for Saint Victor, with whom she's generally depicted. In the earliest version of her story, written by a 4th century deacon in Antioch, Saint Corona publicly confessed her faith and comforted Saint Victor, a Roman soldier, as he was being tortured and killed for his Christian faith. And then afterwards, she too was martyred. She was tied between 2 palm trees that had been bent to the ground and torn apart when the trees were allowed to snap back to full height. That's
some suffering.
What a terribly creative mode of martyrdom.
Yeah.
And yet she was willing to undergo it. She's not the patron saint of disease or pandemics, as has been reported, but you'll like this, Kathleen. She is the patron saint of treasure hunters.
Are you mateys?
Which has little to do with her story and more to do with the treasure hunter who credited his success to her intercession. But still.
What treasures can you find in your house while you're, quarantined?
That's right. Yeah. There you go, I suppose.
Saint Corona, pray for us.
I was going to say, if nothing else, she is a member of the hallowed halls of saints.
Absolutely.
And we ask Saint Corona, Saint Victor, as well as Saint Sebastian, Saint Philomena. Saint, his name's in my head. Nope, it's gone. All right, anyway. We ask all the angels and saints to pray for us. Saint Roch, there it is. You got it, yeah. He really should pray for us because we are the Catholic Underground. There's no quarantine on dancing, even poorly. Oh, sorry. Anyway,
should be someone.
There should be, yeah. Yeah, you're listening to the Catholic Underground. We're online at catholicunderground.tv. I am Father Chris, joined by Kathleen Lee, by Father Ryan Humphries, who is in his rectory in North Louisiana. Also, Jeff Blackwell and Ed are helping to switch the show from the satellite up there, but we're trying to figure out a way because the state of Louisiana, as of us coming on the air at this time, has issued kind of a stay-at-home order. Not kind of a stay-at-home order that's effective for us beginning tomorrow. So we're trying to figure out the best way we're going to get Catholic Underground to you. So stay tuned. If nothing else, we might have to get old school, and in just a moment and later on in the show, we'll tell you all the ways that you can tune into the Catholic Underground for not only our program, but also some of the liturgical stuff that we're providing for you. Yeah. But until then, we tend to think that the masses that are not being offered publicly is something that's unprecedented. Yeah. But it's really not.
No, people, this is not new, right? But with dioceses around the world canceling, the pictures of Pope Francis,
blessing the empty square,
looking out of the square, I'm like, oh my gosh. And for us, that's something that's shocking. And you may already feel, I don't know where you are. Maybe you are a daily communicant, maybe you're a weekly communicant. But I think even for those that have strayed from the Eucharist, that there might be this feeling of being starved for the Eucharist. And so, we're fighting this pandemic, and it seems like the Mass is more necessary now than ever. And it's frustrating because we can't get to it. Right. But while public masses are canceled, the private ones continue, and the body of Christ is able to receive the graces from those masses.
And I think we should probably underscore that, right? Because even though you're not sitting in the pew, and even though you're not hopping into the communion line, right, those graces from the Mass that are innumerable can be transferred to you. In fact, Father, I don't know if you're doing this, but I'm making a very conscious effort whenever I offer the sacrifice of the Mass to ask the Lord only for the graces that are necessary for me as I receive the Eucharist, but then to give everything else to those in my parishes who need it.
Yeah, a lot of my masses right now are what we call masses pro popolo, masses for the people in the parish, living and dead, and certainly keeping in mind all those people who are sick and suffering at any number of levels. Because, we have to remember, this disease is killing a good number of people, but there are other worse diseases out there that are killing an awful lot of people that don't get this kind of attention, and those folks need prayers just as much as if not more than people who are locked down in their homes.
That's exactly right. But that being said, Kathleen, there are many who lived significant amounts of time without the sacraments.
Sure. Yeah, there are plenty of saints and even more, millions more Christians who've had similar experiences of being divorced from the Mass. So being not being able to receive the Eucharist. Months, years go along without them being able to receive the sacraments. And so here are a few of them that we wanted to kind of go through. Probably you've never heard of any of them, but they have some really cool stories. First off, and though they're not canonized, thousands and thousands of Japanese Christians lived without priests for nearly 250 years.
That's right. They were expelled from Japan.
Right.
Well, the ones that weren't martyred were expelled.
Right. And so the faithful there, they baptized their children in secret. They passed down the faith in whispered lessons, right? Can you imagine just like story time?
In my head, that's how you teach your sixth graders. Yeah. Whispered lessons.
Oh yeah. I'm like, y'all want to, I say that all the time. I'm like, y'all want to hear something real cool? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, let me tell you. Right. They prayed before images of the Madonna and Child of Mary and Jesus that were disguised to look like Buddhist images, right? Which was the religion of Japan. Right. In 1858, Japan finally readmitted Christian missionaries who found 10,000 hidden Christians waiting for them.
And they were waiting for priests.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, they're like, oh, you're priests? Well, we've been saving this church for you.
Yeah. It wasn't like in 250 years, you would think they'd be like, okay, forget it. Right. Well, but no, they were like, oh, we've been waiting for you to come. Right. And so imagine being raised with the near certainty that you would never in your life attend Mass.
Just hearing about the Mass.
Yeah. You're just hearing about it. It's like this legend, right? This folklore. And you only know of it because it's been passed down from your grandmothers. Right. And this puts social distancing in perspective, right? That these people for 250 years kept a faith that they weren't able to practice.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And we're struggling 5 days.
Yeah. And I get it, but
sure.
But we might need to take it into
But these are the men and women, I mean, again, now long gone to the Lord. These are the ones who know exactly what we're going through. This is why we have the intercession of the saints. Right. Anybody who's now in heaven, they know exactly what we're going through, and so they can identify with us, and then they go to the heart of the Lord,
right,
and beg for the graces that we need.
Yeah. We go on to talk about the saints of the 19th century Korea. They were in a similar situation, and after the gospel was first preached by a servant of God, Yibok, and his companions in 1784, the church was run entirely by lay people until 1795.
Wow.
So 11 years. And at that point, Blessed James Zhu Wenmo arrived and discovered 4,000 Catholics. Only one of those 4,000 had ever seen a priest.
Wow.
What? And he served as the only priest in all of Korea for 6 years until, guess what? He didn't just say, okay, I have a new assignment. He was martyred. Yep. Right. And this is a similar theme that, when we talk about, we mentioned earlier about being obedient, there are people out there who, are persecuted for their faith. We're going through a hard time and it's hard. Right. But we need to put that in perspective too, I think. These people went into these places where they weren't able to celebrate the Mass, where they weren't able to celebrate the sacraments, these priests, these missionaries, pretty much knowing that they faced death.
Yeah,
it was a
lives on the line.
Great possibility. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And many of them were martyred. And for the next 36 years in Korea, there were again no masses until a small group of French priests arrived in 1836. And guess what? Were killed 2 years later. Yeah. Right. And so, can you imagine too being a people where missionary priests are coming in, finally you're like, I can celebrate the sacraments, and then they're killed.
They're found out.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not like they're deported and kicked out of the country, but their lives are taken. Yeah. Yeah. St. Isaac Jogues.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You got it.
He may have been prepared for torture and martyrdom when he traveled to North America to evangelize Native Americans, but As a priest, he wouldn't have expected to be deprived of the Eucharist himself until his hands were marred by his captors.
Yep, they made him unable to celebrate the Mass.
Right, and at the time, a priest who was missing a thumb or forefinger was unable to celebrate the Mass.
Yep.
Why is that so?
Father Ryan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there were a number of non-negotiables for a priest, and still are actually in canon law. That included like the left eye of the priest. The left eye priest calls the canonical eye because he reads the missal with that eyeball. And so that had to be in place. The priest had to be able to lift the sacred host because you have to be able to keep custody of your fingers.
Right. So the thumb and the forefinger are important.
That's right.
And I believe the right hand you had to have both of. I think the left hand wasn't sufficient. You had to have both the thumb and forefinger on the right hand in order to offer Mass.
Yeah. And so he was his Mohawk captors.
Right.
Interestingly enough, they knew that he needed these. He needed his digits. Isn't that something?
Yeah, and so he was unable to confess.
He was the only priest there,
right?
So.
He was unable to celebrate Mass or even to attend Mass.
Yeah,
what?
Because he was the only one.
Yeah, but he was given a special dispensation and permitted to celebrate Mass again, in spite of the state of his hands, and he requested permission to return to America. Right, and so he comes back to France. Right, 17 months.
Receives dispensation,
and like he's like, oh, and by the way, can I go back there?
Man,
when you talk about like these are like the priests of our age that are doing these masses online and these drive up confessions and these drive up times of adoration. Yep. These are our priests, right? And they're putting themselves out there. Like, I mean, and I would venture to say, just like these priests are like, send me back in.
Man, I feel like a poser compared to Isaac Jokes.
No, I think you're awesome. And he was actually killed not long after his return, right? So he goes back to America. He's killed, but his killer later repented and was baptized and took his name as his baptismal name.
Wow.
See, that's how cool.
That's when you know conversion takes. So like, and the one that I killed, I now will take his name upon myself. Wow.
Yeah. And there's several other, several other communities, several other saints who were deprived of the sacraments for one reason or another. We're going to put those in our show notes. And if you're looking for somebody to
ask
stand fast with, these are the people that you need to be looking at.
That's right. We'll take a little bit of a break, but you know where to catch us on the other side of it. Be back in a sec. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy, our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping in this valley of tears. Turn then, most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us the blessed fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary. Welcome back. You found the Catholic Underground with me, Father Chris Decker, Kathleen Lee. We got Father Ryan up there with the smooth jazz. It's free form. And also Jeff Blackwell and Ed Ball. Our picks of the week are coming up, but in the midst of all of this hullabaloo, chicanery, you might also say, it's important to always keep in front of us the virtuous life. Right? If nothing else, we must learn to fall back on virtue. Right. Not just the supernatural virtues, but also the natural virtues as well. In fact, I have not done that well this past week because one of the things that gets hard to do is to practice virtue whenever your kind of nose is against the grindstone. Yeah. And yet, Father Ryan, we know that there are at least 4 virtues that can help us to keep our eyes on Christ in this crisis.
You mean to keep our eyes hinged in place, Father?
Yes, hinged in place, I believe, yes.
Huzzah!
As if it were on a pivot.
Obscure puns. The cardinal virtues are are so named because they are the hinges upon which
Indeed.
the Christian faith, turns. And so if we keep those in place, then we, like a door, will be attached to the solid frame of the faith. And so, we have those four virtues, which are wisdom, which is also oftentimes called prudence. Mm-hmm. We have strength of character, which is often called fortitude. We have justice, and then we have temperance, which is the capacity to choose the good, but not to overdo on anything.
So you don't eat all of your snacks that you've purchased, Kathleen.
What?
Yeah.
Whoopsies.
It does mean that you have to change out of your waking up pajamas into your walking around pajamas. Then you have to change to your afternoon pajamas and then to your evening pajamas. Then you go back to bed pajamas, and you have to make sure you make those at least 4 sea changes in a day.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Kathleen likes the idea of a costume change.
I do. I've put on plenty of days of work clothes just so that I can feel like a human being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it comes to virtue, because we tend to think that the times in which we live are just the only times that matter, and that this experience that we're having right now with the coronavirus is the only time we've ever had to experience as a church.
Right.
Some sort of massive, kind of worldwide change in the way that we do things. But in 1576, the plague that menaced the city of Milan took 25,000 lives, and even the civil government fled the city out of fear. And that's when the Archbishop, you might remember him, St. Charles Borromeo, he took over. And that's really something, Father Ryan. The Archbishop says, well, the government's not here. I'll take over.
Yeah.
I have had enough of this.
That's right. Yeah. And he assured the people that he would not abandon them. And together with all the priests from the parishes and religious orders, he began to care for their material and spiritual needs. So get this, 1576, the plague is ravaging Milan and then, heading outward to all points in between. Charles Borromeo organized hospitals. He cared for orphans. He brought the sacraments to those who were quarantined in their homes. He got priests to offer masses in public squares and in the middle of streets so that people could participate from their houses. Does that sound familiar?
Very cool.
I mean, does that sound familiar? Yeah.
I've seen several just in the last 2 days of priests bringing the Eucharist out to just the street, like a street corner.
Yeah. The Bishop of Tyler, Texas did that.
Yeah. Incredible.
Bishop Strickland. Yeah. He was blessing people as they passed. And what's interesting about the Eucharistic processions that I've seen, I did one myself in one of my parishes. I was able to, after one of my daily masses, in fact, it was probably my last daily mass in that parish church, how we've kind of suspended the requirement of having the Eucharist covered whenever it's outside. So typically when you carry the monstrance in procession, it's supposed to be covered by a canopy or an ombrellino or something. And again, because you're kind of battlefield commissioning things, I noticed a lot of priests and even bishops are like, nope, what matters now is I bring Christ to them, to my people, to my flock.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Charles Borromeo was doing, for sure. He was willing to risk his life to care for both the souls and the bodies of those entrusted to him. He said that Christ does not even request this pathetic life of ours, but only that we put it at risk. He said Christ died for us first, and so the least that we can do is put our life at risk so that he can go to others. He said that he challenged people to pay attention not only what can kill the body like pestilence, but also what can harm the soul, commenting that the devout souls of our brethren languish with desire for divine things. So he realizes that the source of true hunger is ultimately for divine things. And think about it, like all the stuff that you've got in your house, like, Jeff, I don't know, were you caught up in the toilet paper craze of 2020?
I still don't understand.
I can't get it. I
don't either.
I don't understand it, but that kind of, to me, more than anything, that was an attempt to fill an appetite. Like, I don't know what to do. I must do something. Yeah. So I'm going to go into, at least in Louisiana, hurricane preparation mode.
Yeah.
And
right.
May I add this? Because a dear friend of mine who is a Cajun, and they think a little bit differently. They got a real practical way of looking at things. He said, I go to the grocery store, I couldn't find no bread. There was no toilet paper. Now I know what they're doing. They're making them toilet paper sandwiches. So,
yeah, that's right.
That's the only explanation.
At dinner, be quiet and eat your toilet paper, honey.
Indeed.
Yeah. But I think that's what it is that we are attempting to fill our bodily appetites with comfort, right? Mm-hmm. Running out of toilet paper is just one of those things in 2020 that we can't imagine.
Yeah.
And so we begin to hoard it. And the same thing with bread and all these little, what we would call the staples, And yet, Charles Borromeo says, don't be afraid of what can kill the body, but what can harm the soul. And he says, ultimately, what we want is we have a desire for divine things. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing with people that truly desire. They're frustrated because you can't go to your parish church for Mass. Yeah. And believe me, as priests, we share that frustration for you and with you. And so let's look at some of these virtues that we need. The first, of course, would be faith. Mm-hmm. The first is faith, to recognize that it is Christ who promised he would be with us always until the end of time. And that promise is true. He is good to his word. All right. And I suppose we should say, Father, that faith is one of the theological virtues. And so it's infused within us, right, at the day of our baptism.
Right. It's both a gift and a virtue. It's the kind of thing that's a spark within us that we have to fan into flame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so faith helps us to trust in God's providential care. And it's interesting that people say, blind faith, whatever. But no, being able to make that act of faith with every bit of the will that we have, because that's one thing that we do have, is we have free will. And with our will, we can say, Lord, I choose to trust in you and in your care for me. And that as a statement of the will is what makes that spark fan into flame. When there's a temptation in times of crisis, we can try to take control over things that human beings cannot control. Buying all the toilet paper, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I think that's why faith is easier to come by in poorer nations, or in people. Like you go to a barrio in Mexico or in Brazil, and there's a lot of faith there because there is nothing to fake it. There's nothing that can be an illusion of faith. But nowadays in the U.S., everything is fake faith. You can fake your faith with social media, and you can get X number of likes on Instagram. And so you can fake your faith in that. You can fake your faith 100 ways. But when that all goes away, you kind of have to look to that which is real. And when you look to that which is real, you have an incredible gift of faith. But we so rarely have an opportunity to have our fake stuff taken away from us. Mm-hmm. And so, there's a blessing here, for faith in that.
Absolutely. And I think so many of you who attended Mass virtually today experienced perhaps a resurgence of that faith, a true hunger for your parish community, a true hunger for the Eucharist, a true reception of spiritual communion, and those are the things that build faith in us.
Yeah, and I think I think people are realizing now that you have to participate in that. Yeah, I've had so many people reach out to me, or people that I've never talked to really about faith, even though it is what I do, and it is, that have said, hey, let's do a rosary, or where can I find a Mass, or, that there's now this call to participate.
Yeah. Well, because so much of what we live in today is kind of, we live immersed at least ankle deep in a pool of practical atheism, right? Where we live as if God doesn't exist, or as if God doesn't care, or if he does exist, who cares, And so it's faith that inspires us to do all that we can with God, with him. I think we sometimes forget that one of the original gifts of God in the garden, right, before the fall of our first parents, was the gift of co-working. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He gave us the gift, because, God could have provided everything. Well, he did provide everything, but he could have provided everything with like a pull tab, Mm-hmm. And yet he allowed us to cultivate the earth. He allows us to cultivate the creation that he's given us. And I think we forget that God wants us to work with him and not apart from him. Yeah. And working with him is making that act of faith to say, Lord, I believe in you, I trust in you. And even when I can't see you present in every aspect of my life, I'm still going to say, Lord, I'm putting all my chips on you, Yeah. knowing that our life is ultimately in God's hands. And I think that's also being tested as we have this mysterious disease that takes 2 weeks to incubate, right, and to manifest symptoms. And so a lot of us are having our faith tested that way of like, well, is it going to be me? And what does it mean? Am I in the age bracket or what? Yeah. The next one would be prudence, as Father mentioned, which helps us to discern the good in each circumstance among many competing goods, and to choose the right means to achieve whatever that good is. I remember, Father, in the seminary, our rector, Father Gregory, who was a gruff Benedictine, he says, men, oftentimes in the seminary and in life, and as a priest, you're not going to be choosing between good and evil.
Right.
You're going to be choosing between good and what is better.
Right. Yeah.
And that's an important thing. And prudence helps us to set a proper measure.
Yeah.
A proper rule and measure, something that's desperately needed in times of crisis. Because I know as Father and I were kind of watching the news cycle spin up, there's usually a lack of prudence in things.
Yeah.
Like if you just look at somebody's social media feed, right? Sharing every possible conspiracy theory, every possible not quite news site, all this stuff. Yeah. And yet prudence is what says, is what I'm sharing, is what I'm typing, is what I'm commenting, is this beneficial for another person's soul?
Right.
And I think sometimes we forget that that's not just our natural ability, but that's informed by our relationship with God as well.
Right. Yeah.
And practice of our faith.
It's also informed by the church. I mean, I think that's one of the things that's easy to forget is that we're not just, asking like a kind of Jiminy Cricket to grow within us, to be wise and prudent. But the church is telling us these things are good, these are better. And the church is telling us these assumptions are good, these assumptions are bad. My entire sermon this morning at the Mass in the ordinary form was about the whole question of what assumptions underlie the way that we live our lives. And this is forcing us to call into question some of the basic, as you say, fundamentally atheist assumptions by which we lead our lives. And that's, it's an incredible opportunity for us to recognize that these assumptions don't work. Like the Pharisees in the gospel, well, your sin caused your son to be blind. He was healed. Boom, and the head explodes because the Pharisees don't know how to deal with two competing truths because they have faulty assumptions that put them in conflict with each other. And part of prudence is acknowledging I've got some stuff here that doesn't make sense to me. Well, not how do I throw one away, but how do I find the way that they make sense? Because true is true, good is good, God is God, Jesus is the truth, the way, the life. He can't contradict himself.
Right, exactly. And so it is the gift of prudence that also helps us to inform our conscience, how we ought to act. And that's where the church is so important. I mean, you've heard me wax and wane about how following our conscience is definitely necessary and primary, but our conscience must be formed. And one of the ways that we form our conscience is by learning what the church teaches about things, what she teaches in her moral theology, her moral life, and what she practices in regular Christian life. And then to be able to kind of weigh those things. And it's kind of the Holy Spirit that helps to set the balance, right? We believe that there's a spiritual power that can come in our truly saying, Lord, I wish to discern the good here and help me to choose the best here. Compassion, for example, is the means between apathy and sentimental indulgence, right? Being compassionate is willing to suffer with somebody. But it's the middle way between being completely apathetic and then just completely going all in and indulging in sentiment. Courage, for example, is found within the extremes of cowardice and recklessness, right? We know we have a lot of folks that are just reckless, and we call them courageous because they're willing to go where angels fear to tread. Yeah. But true courage is knowing when to step up and when to say this is worth the fight. And when to hang back and say, hold now. And that's not being courageous involves withholding, right? Stepping back until the right time. In this present circumstance, prudence can help us to see that an overabundance of caution, you've been hearing that a lot, right? Out of an overabundance of caution, we are choosing to do X, huh? Yeah. This is not a virtue, but a vice. And you've heard some health professionals say, like, at the end of all this, when we're looking back on it, we want folks to say they overreacted.
Yeah.
Because, that's being prudent. And that's how you, like when we talk about flattening the curve, right? Yeah. That's that buzzword phrase. That's what we're talking about, trying to be prudent on the right measure of caution. Prudence assists courage in helping people to know how to take the right risks.
Yeah.
And that's a virtue that we are called to practice. Also, charity to sacrifice ourselves for the good of others, right? That's what true charity is willing the good of the other as other. And that's just really a paraphrase of what Jesus says in John chapter 15, verse 13. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you, says Jesus, And he makes it very clear that our ability to be charitable is not just based in sentiment and whether I want to do it or not, but as a mandate of the Lord to lay down our life for others, to wash their feet,
Right.
Or squirt Purell in their hands, I suppose, I gotta eisegete a little bit here. But yeah, so I mean, think about it in your own family, right? Moms and dads, even the most temperamentally timid and conflict averse, will instinctively protect their children in the face of a gunman, in the face of bombs, of tornadoes,
right.
of sickness and illness. They will protect their children, and it just snaps right in.
Right.
In fact, if you're a new parent, or maybe you've been a parent forever, you're probably one of those, like, when you look back, you go, "Wow, I just snatched him away from that. How did I do that?" And yet that's when charity takes over as a virtue. And that's the thing about virtues, is that when we practice the virtues, right? When we kind of let them grow within us, they become effortless. Not something that doesn't take effort to kind of call to bear, but they become so effortless in that's our knee jerk. Our knee jerk is not vice. Our knee jerk is, I will do the right thing because it's right.
Yeah.
I will do the courageous thing because it's courageous. And in that way, we become more and more like Jesus, who always chooses the right because he is right himself.
Yeah.
And we ourselves are able to participate in that whenever we let the virtuous life overtake us. The greater the love, the greater the audacity. We are able to be audacious. Courage doesn't mean fearlessness, but it means that we ought to, despite our fear, love. And love gives us strength to overcome fear and do what love demands. Because as Father Ryan will remind you, fear is the mind killer.
It is. I must face my fear and let it pass through me.
That's right. That's a Dune quote, Jeff. Dune.
It is.
Oh,
yeah.
It's been a long time.
Frank Miller. It's worth your time.
Yeah. Thankfully, Kathleen, for your impending pet desires,
yes.
We do not have worm sign. So.
Thank goodness.
And you would not want to say.
And I do have to correct. It's not Frank Miller. It's Frank Herbert. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kathleen.
Get your Franks right.
You do not want an Arrakis sandworm. I'm just telling you.
I don't think that sounds
I'll be honest.
fun.
That's right.
Nor do you want your name to be a killing word, but
no.
we might be on a sidetrack here.
Actually, I think Kathleen's name is a cupcake word. Yeah. Patience. Patience would be the next virtue. Okay. And this is in like the top 10, probably the top 3 of Father. I need more patience, right? Patience.
Yeah.
Which means principally not an ability to wait. I'm going to say this again. Not an ability to wait. Oftentimes we think patience is an ability to wait. It is not that. It is actually a capacity to suffer.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just let that land there in silence for just a long suffering. The word patience comes from the Latin patior, which means to suffer, which is why we call the sick in the hospitals patience. Paciencia. Yeah. Courage requires that we do not have an excessive fear of pain, or where our fear of pain ultimately arrives, which is the fear of death. And so when we talk about patience, we're talking about a capacity to suffer with and to suffer personally.
Yeah, I know this may be true for you. I know my introverted friends are super excited about what's going on. Maybe not super excited.
Right, because their whole world became a library.
Right. The ability to stay home for an extrovert like me, and I say it in jest a lot of times, but there's real fear and anxiety of what the next few weeks are going to look like, simply for the fact that I'm an extrovert.
Yep.
And I know in my own being that when I shut myself away, it's not good.
Yeah.
And so the idea of patience, I know that I'll suffer, and not just from my creature comforts, all that kind of thing, but I know that I will, the fear of being alone with my thoughts, the fear of just being alone in general, I'm going to suffer. And so I know patience is something that I myself am going to be dealing with for the next, who knows?
Who knows? That's right.
Who knows? And so something that I know, especially tonight looking at this, something that I'll be bringing to prayer is, Lord, how is it that you want me to be patient?
Yep.
How is it that you want me to suffer? And what do you want me to do with that suffering? Because I know it's coming.
That's right. Crises like the present situation are times for Catholics united with Christ to truly shine. This is a time where we can be salt and leaven, and we're called to help everyone else become courageous in the face of these threats. And it's a time for us to show that we really, truly believe the words of Jesus. Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid. The waves are going to attempt to crash over us. Again, it's the spirit, the world, and the flesh. The waves are going to attempt to overtake us. And yet, this is a time to stand up and say, Lord, it is you. Yeah. I will not be afraid. All right, we could go on. If you want that article, we'll put it in the show notes by Father Roger Landry, who's writing for the National Catholic Register. We'll put that in the show notes for you, along with all the other show notes that you can find at catholicunderground.tv. Our picks of the week, why don't we just go to that part of the show that we like to call
the CU Pick of the Week.
All righty, for our CU, sorry for the fake out there, Jeff.
That's all right.
I forgot to read my script properly, but for the first pick of the week, well, Kathleen, we usually start with you, so let's start with you. Okay,
I know a lot of people out there, a lot of artists, musicians are struggling.
Yep.
And there have been a lot of people who are, because they're based on, performance art.
Yep. Or commission or something like that.
And we aren't really focusing on that right now. But I've used him as my pick of the week before, but there's a local artist, Jacob Zumo.
Local to us
here in Louisiana. Phenomenal artist. And what he's done is he's realized, that our local missionaries of charity, they run a shelter for women and children, and they're out of stuff. They've had to buy in bulk, and you can imagine there's not a lot of bulk to buy. And so what he has done is calling it a call to rise. And he has created an image of the praying hands in his style. It's beautiful. And you buy it, and part of those proceeds are going to the missionaries of charity to help them provide for the poor, for those women and children who are in their shelter, for the people who come to them for meals every day. You can buy a print for $40, or you can buy an original for $200, and it's all there. If you're looking for some way to give back, if you're looking for something to support, Jacob Zumo, we'll have the link in the show notes.
Very cool. Yeah. Father Ryan, it's been a while for you. What's your pick of the week?
Well, I mentioned in the pre-show that I'm getting involved in 3D printing, and actually I'm working on a print right now that will help me mount my iPad more effectively to a mic stand I'm using for the Mass in church.
Nice.
It's incredibly cool. Just a couple years ago, the 3D printing cost, $2,000-$3,000. The first time I looked into it, it was $3,750 for the El Cheapo model. And so I've been kind of keeping up with what's going on. And nowadays, there are kits that you have to put it together yourself. You're building a printer. They send you the parts.
In fact, wasn't the printing also part of the kit? Like once you had it together, you had mods for the printer?
Yeah, once you had it together, you print mods for the kit that you just assembled. But I mean, I'm no brilliant assembler of things. It's not soldering, motherboards together. But it took about 2.5 hours to put together. I have the Creality Ender 3 Pro, which cost me about $275. I bought some filament and I bought some stuff to go with it, and I'm into it for about $350. And I've got a working 3D printer, which allowed me to print, some organizational stuff for my desk, some, USB holders, some neat stuff, some quirky stuff, and like I said, I'm printing now some useful stuff for use in this time. You can get involved in this relatively cheap now. If you want the all put together for you and ready to go thing, you're still looking at $1,000. But if you want to kind of just get in on the basic stuff where you can start printing and just see whether it's interesting for you, it's great for homeschoolers, great for kind of a STEM course, great for families who are just trying to do something that's a little different. The whole thing is about 18 inches by 18 inches by about 2 feet tall, so it's not huge. You don't need a ton of space. And like I said, it's relatively cheap. So I had the Ender 3 Pro from Creality. It's about $300 on Amazon. And if you are going to get one, make sure you look for a good YouTube video to put it together. They sent me a one-page IKEA-looking thing and said, here, put together this printer. And I was like, you've got to be kidding. But there's a bunch of great stuff out there. The filament is relatively cheap. And so if you're in any way interested in this kind of stuff, it's a great time to get involved. I'm having a good time with it. And so certainly want to pick that for folks who might be, in that kind of camp.
Definitely fascinating. But, Amazon has those iPad holders that go on a mic stand for $25. So it's not fun, though.
This is more fun. This is a much. There's something about taking a thing and saying, this didn't exist. It didn't exist.
No, it really is fascinating. I can't wait to see the finished product.
Yeah, and Jeff, if you don't mind, I'm going to preempt your and my pick of the week just to give some programming updates for those of you who are watching us on Facebook. So we have a very long list. In fact, this is a pick of the week. Jeff and I share it. This is our weekly schedule for the Catholic Underground, Monday through Friday at facebook.com/Catholic Underground. We're going to offer Mass in the ordinary form at 8:30, at 9:15, Holy Mass in the extraordinary form at 9 o'clock p.m. I'm doing a Compline, which is the night prayer of the church, as well as a check-in to see how everybody's doing at 9 p.m. These are all Central Daylight Time, by the way. Wednesday and Friday, Deacon Joshua LeBlanc is going to do the Stations of the Cross at 8 p.m. Central Time. On Saturday at 9:15, Father Ryan is going to offer Mass in the ordinary form. And on Sunday at 8:15, Father Ryan offers Mass in the extraordinary form. 9:15, Holy Mass in the ordinary form. At 11 a.m., I will offer Mass in the ordinary form. And then 7 p.m., the Catholic Underground program.
Yep.
And then we'll try and stir Kathleen in there as well. So we just wanted to give you the updates. Again, times are subject to change, but right now, all those central times. If you want all that information, you can go to CatholicUnderground.com and we'll make sure that it's up on the website, or just like us on Facebook.com/Catholic Underground. Alrighty, Jeff, we're always grateful for our growing number of undergrounders, aren't we?
Indeed we are, and this week the Catholic Underground is possible because of people just like you. Join the growing number of undergrounders at CatholicUnderground.com/donate. An important way to support us is to like us, heart us, star us, share us on your social media platform of choice, and leave a review if you will. That helps a lot too.
That's exactly right. Our panelists this week have been Kathleen Lee, the Faith Ninja, and Hope Samurai at Kaylee626 on the Instagram. Thank you, Kathleen.
Anytime.
Also, Father Ryan Humphries is at FR Humphries. Thank you, Father, for joining us.
It has been my pleasure.
Our technical director is Jeff Blackwell at Jeff Blackwell us on the Instagram and Twitter. Thank you, Jeff.
It is a privilege, Fathers.
Our research assistant is also quarantined. Leader of the crew in the lab is Jim Hayes. Our video and graphics director is Ed Ball. And you know me, I'm Father Chris. You can follow me on Instagram at Digital Catholic. We hope that we've helped you cut through the noise and find that still small voice. It's there. We are the Catholic Underground. We are Faith Gone Digital. We'll see you next time, and please take care of each other, and we will pray for each other. Oremus pro invicem. See you next time.
from the Catholic Underground.